Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Jules Leyhe. In today's video, I'm going to answer a great question that I got on my community tab recently. This question is from Shad Vegas Music. How do you look at the fretboard and interpret it? We all have different ways of viewing the various shapes and scales, caged, pentatonic shapes. So I'd love to hear your insight into that. So thanks for the great question. I'm definitely going to have to go into some length over a number of videos on this topic alone, because visualizing the fretboard is a thing that really does take a while to get. But I have a couple of tips in this video that I think might be illuminating and might help break out of just maybe some ruts that we have in some gaps across the fretboard. And so to dive right into it right off the bat, I want to explain what the caged system really is, because I think I feel like there are just a lot of gaps in what people think about and what they, as far as visualizing what the caged system is, and sort of having these, having the notes really kind of light up when you're playing. That's something that I know guys like Pat Metheny talk about. When you are really getting a grasp on the fretboard, it's kind of crazy. It's like these shapes are like lit up for you across the frets. So let me try to help light up your fretboard a little bit and understand better how to use something like the caged system. So first of all, and this is all worth going over a number of times, I still feel like you might feel like caged. Yeah, I know it. Whatever. On to the next thing. But I might say something here that you haven't thought of before. So I would encourage you to check this out. Here is caged and how I use and think of it to just play fluently across the fretboard. So in order to use the caged system, I'm going to play in the key of C first. And I'm simply going to start down here. You'll see that out of the word caged, that's giving us which shape we're on currently. So in this case, this is a C-shaped C chord down here, your classic cowboy chord, right? Your C shape down here. So this is a C shape, C chord. The next one that we have, and now this is why caged is such a great way to remember the shapes, is now we're just going to go to the next letter in the word caged. So next we have an A-shaped C, and that looks like this. Right, this is like your classic power chord, rooted at the 3rd fret of the 5th string. And then I like to bar the rest with my ring finger, as you can see. I'll use my pinky as well, but I prefer my ring so that if I want to use my pinky, I can. But then your ring finger is getting the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. So far we have C, and then the A-shaped C here. And then next up comes the G-shaped C. And for this, we're going to just replace our ring finger on the 5th fret here with our index finger, right? That's going to get the same notes up here, but our pinky comes down to the low E string at the 8th fret, and that's going to get the C. And then your E is fretted by your ring finger at the 7th fret of the A string. So you can see this is just a G shape down here that we're moving up 5 frets to be a C chord up here. So far we have C here, C-shaped C. Now we have A-shaped C, and we have the G-shaped C here. Next up, E. So we have an E-shaped C chord here. This is just your classic, you probably don't think of this as an E-shaped C chord, but that's how the caged system works, right? So here's just your classic, it's just like this E chord down here. But we're turning it into a C shape by barring and playing it up at the 8th fret. So that's C-A-G-E. The last shape is the D shape. This one's kind of weird. It's a little tricky. This one is rooted on the 4th string at the 10th fret. And then up above it, we have your ring finger has to bar at the 12th fret, and then your pinky gets the 13th fret of the B string. So the top 4 strings, they sound like this. Right? So once more, this is the C chord going up the neck using the cage system. This is where it all comes from. One chord. Okay? And now the coolest thing about this system is that this is how chords sit and work. Within all these chords, scales are sitting right there. Arpeggios, they're all sitting right here. So they're not separate from the chords. You know, chords and scales are basically one thing going on. Pentatonic scales, well, let's say you want to play C major pentatonic, right? If my favorite place to play it is probably thinking, you might think of it as like the A minor pentatonic scale. So you see how right out of it, you might not have noticed this before, but A minor pentatonic, which is the relative minor of C major, right? You could either play an A minor chord by going like this, but this is kind of like a coin. If you call it on heads and it lands on heads, you know that the other side is tails. That's how I like to think of relative major and minor. If this is A minor, I know that this scale, if I just go C to C instead of A to A, that gives me my C major pentatonic. Right? So that it's like this is heads, and then this is tails. Now, I kind of made up that heads and tails thing, but it works for me. If I'm on tails, I know what the other side is. It's heads. If I'm in C major, I know that my relative minor is A minor. Sorry, I had to get that straight before I said the wrong thing there. So you can see each one of these is just conveniently sitting. I didn't have to move my hand anywhere to go play C major. I can just play it out of my shape right here. I'm making the chord, and I can also just sit right there and I go. Right? So this sort of understanding, getting more bang for your buck out of one thing. You might have just thought of this as A minor pentatonic before I showed you that, oh, that A minor pentatonic equals C major pentatonic. I'm going to go into that whole thing on its own in another video because there's a whole revelation right there. But this concept of knowing what to get out of each zone, this comes from being able to not just play a C chord in the C, A, G, E, and D position, but we want to be able to do little movements. This is what I would recommend doing across the fretboard for any songs that you already know how to play. I'm going to show you a really classic, it's kind of a cliche chord move. This happens in a lot of songs. One of my favorite songs that this movement specifically happens in is Something, George Harrison from the Beatles' Abbey Road. And so check this out. I'll show it to you down here. This is specifically in the key of C, and there's a little line cliche. A line cliche is a chromatic movement where one voice moves down or up within a chord, and it gives us a really pleasing voice leading that leads us through this chord progression really well. But just by doing this across the neck, this will help present you with the parts that are sort of dead spots for you, where you might not know which notes are going in which chord. What all of this does is it keeps you honest in chord spelling and voice leading, and ultimately just being more conscious about things that you're playing. Instead of memorizing shapes, you're really getting inside of what's going on with these notes that are moving around. So here, let me show you the part that I'm talking about. So it's basically what we're going to do is we're going to go C major, and then we're going to go a bar of C major 7, and then a bar of C7, and that's all leading us to an F chord. So let me just show you one down here what this does, and then we'll move it around the neck, and you'll see how invaluable of an exercise this is just for unlocking the fretboard for yourself. So here we go. Here's what we're doing. And the time right now is not as important as just simply getting your fingers to move down. So, this is not like worrying about super in the pocket. We're more worrying about just the ingredients that we're working with, okay? So here we go. It's roughly like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now this is basically something, right? This is like the verse. So now I'm going to do that really quickly in the next position, and there are some Easter eggs in just this progression alone. There's some cool stuff going on that the line cliche is kind of concealing, because we can focus on the line cliche and not understand that there's some sneaky stuff going on within this chord progression. So that exact same thing now up in this next A shape C chord. So I'm really not moving that far, but what is happening is I'm no longer playing this shape. I'm playing it out of this next shape up. So index finger is getting the root at the 5th fret, and it sounds like this now. Okay, now the next position, and this one gets a little bit tricky, and this is what's fantastic about this exercise. On the piano, every octave is the same, right? C to C. You look at the next octave, and it looks exactly the same. On guitar, obviously, that's not quite the same at all. So there are going to be some positions on the neck that we favor for some of these parts, and somewhere, man, you're going to just break your fingers right off of your hand if you try to get these reaches that are just too far. And here's one of them where you can physically do it, but it gets to be a little tough. And just by not being able to do something somewhere as well as you can in another position, this is a big part of opening up the fretboard and understanding which is a great spot to play the thing that you're trying to play. So here's that same idea once more. I'm in the G shape now, right? We've done C, we've done A, and now we're up here to the G shape C chord. This is at the 8th fret with your pinky on the 8th fret, and we're going like this. See, that part's really tough. I'm making this stretch. I wouldn't actually fret this, but I'm showing you for the sake of the exercise we're working through. And then that goes down another half step. So on piano, that's just a third and a third and a third. You just lay your hand down like this on the piano to play that chord. But on guitar, it's like, I'm going to need a new left hand if I keep trying to fret that. So that's not my favorite place to play that little passage. But I do like this one up here. I love this one next. So I'm going to play, now I'm moving up here to the E shape. And I'm going to focus on the higher strings. I'm going to put the line cliche on the high E string. It's going to go like this. And check this out. It goes like this. Now here's the last one up here. And this one again, yeah, this one's just a little bit, this one's not my favorite, but we're going to do it. And, you know, I have preferable shapes across the neck, that's for sure. I think just about every guitar player probably does. But here we go. Here's the last one, the D shape. Index finger is rooted at the 10th fret of the D string. That's where our C is. And here it is up here. Okay, so you know, on the surface, this is maybe not as thrilling of an exercise as, you know, some of the other videos that I talk about are, but if you understand this, and the Easter egg that I wanted to mention is probably most visually easy to see down here in the original C position. The Easter egg is that we start with this C chord. But then the next thing, as soon as we take our index finger down, and we don't have C to C, but we have C to B, which is this. That's our major seventh, but it's not just a major seventh. What we now have is, and this requires spelling the chord, so playing each note one at a time, and spelling your chords in thirds is of the utmost importance too. So, and again, this is another video. I really appreciate this question because it's a springboard for a ton of videos that I need to make explaining all of these things that are probably going to help demystify how music theory works, how the fretboard works, but you have to spell your chords in thirds. So in this case, a C chord, just C, E, G, C, E, G, right? That's my C triad. Now we added another C, so there is another C. We don't need to mention it since we already mentioned that there's a C, but this chord is spelled C, E, G, C. Now as soon as we take our index finger off and it becomes a B, that's nice, and it's a pretty C major 7, but the Easter egg is that above our C, we now have an E minor triad. I'm going to play that across the neck now. Here's our C chord, and then here is C major 7, also known as E minor over C. And if I take the C out, look, here's just E minor. E minor. E minor. Here's the C. Or here. Right? Here's E minor. You can see I'm just fretting these top 3 strings. If you add your pinky right here, it's our good old C chord. So, C major 7 is actually an E minor triad over a C bass note. Hopefully, if you're watching and you didn't know that, this is a really cool, just like, you know, this is a light bulb moment. Because what we end up doing with all of the, now, as soon as you have a 7th chord, right, you have the triad, root, 3, 5. But then as soon as you have a 7th, another 3rd added to your chord, you have a 2nd triad in the chord, right? So let's say this is the root, this is the 3rd, this is the 5th, this is the 7th. What you have is you have this triad here, 1, 1, 3, 5, but then 3, 5, 7 is also a triad. And that's where getting to know your triads, getting to know how your chords are spelt, being able to then play this across the neck is really important, and just a springboard for fully understanding how the neck of a guitar works, where the notes lie. So now here's what I would ask you to do, or what I would want you to do as a student of mine, is I would want you to be able to play this in any of those caged positions. I'd want you to play C major to C major 7, E minor 7 over C, E minor triad over C. Then going down one more half step to the C7. And now at that point, we're getting into, there are different ways of playing just that additional note across the neck, because you can see, like right here in this position, for example, it's not as simple as just going down one more note here. That one more note would be coming down to this note here, the B flat. But you see, I've got to kind of, I can't just go down because now I'm missing the higher root. So there's a little bit of accommodating that we have to do per position, as I was mentioning before. But a way to sort of workshop this exercise is to do exactly what I'm doing here by going, okay, C to C major 7 to C7 to F. What you can also just do is in each position, you can just pick another chord. Like you might go from C to F to C. And in this case, that would be like this. Right? Now, in the next position, this would be the A position, the A shape up here, right? Now, this one's a little weird. So this one's less. This one doesn't allow you to do this, the C to F thing as well as this next position. So this is like Keith Richards' zone. He made a lot of money doing stuff like this. Okay, you might not have played C to F to C like this. And all I'm doing, you recognize, see how all these shapes, the C shape has the A shape in it, which has the G shape in it, which has the E shape. They're not separate things. They are just one big old thing going on. That's what I'm trying to show you here and want you to get out of this. So far we've got C to F, C to F. You can also do that on the lower strings. You can go. All I'm doing is I'm going C on the bottom string. This one's really nice because all you do is you move the same shape up one string and then back down. C is right here. F is one string above it. Okay. Next position is the E shape, so up at the 8th fret. And this one's basically going from this to this. Okay. The last one, the D shape, is going like this. And again, this one's kind of a pesky shape. I don't love this shape, but it's in there. And so we want to be able to, maybe we don't like it a lot, but we can still maneuver with it, right? Still use it. Now, something like this is cool because you might get, and the point of getting to know all of these is that each shape is spelled differently. So it might be CEG, it might be EGC, it might be GCE. And the point is that you get a different melody along the top, right? Like with this one, if we're going C to F, you might want. So what this understanding of the cage system does for you is it allows you to not just play things in one position, one way every single time. You have different shapes that you can check out. Sometimes chords just really fit together in a way where you realize, oh, okay, these must have been played down here because they go together like butter down here. Whereas up here in this other zone, it's not feeling so good. And I feel like this understanding is a lot of guitar players don't fully understand this system that well. and they have their go-to system where, I see people doing things where the phrasing just isn't there, and they're really working harder than they need to because they're not doing it in the right zone. And anyway, hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more of the fretboard and get more out of it. If you're playing a part somewhere, and what I would try to do is play that part somewhere else and see if you can still get all the right notes. That sort of, translating this into different parts of the neck, playing in the same key, but playing in a different place. Each position also offers different voice leading. So, an example of like that C to F thing that I was doing, if you wanted this on top, right? What you're getting is you're getting the third going to the fourth of C. But if you do it down here at the 8th fret, your top note is just staying a C. And you might want one over the other when you're in a band setting, or if you're recording an album and you go, we've got this person doing this, the background singers are singing oohs and ahs or something, you might favor one point of the neck. You might want to do it lower because the singers are singing way up high. That's what this opens up for you, is not just going, C to F, yeah, I can play it right down here. That might be getting in the way of something else, right? So anyway, I'm going to be expanding upon this because there's a lot more to go. This question really inspired me, so I appreciate the great question, and definitely stay tuned. I'm going to be diving into other fretboard secrets, and just knowing that C major 7 is an E minor triad over C. Things like that, we're going to expand upon quite a bit. So thank you so much for the great question. And if you guys haven't yet already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm putting videos like this out all the time. I also have Masterclass courses available for purchase. These are more in-depth artist-based courses. And I really go into a ton of detail. We did a lot to put these courses together. I'm really proud of them. I think you'll get a lot out of them. There's a link down below in the description of the video, as well as I tagged a comment that has a link to those videos if you're interested in them. Thanks so much for checking this video out. I'll see you guys in the next one.